because the
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the sixth and final webinar in our webinar series that we've been doing over the last couple of months. Today, we're looking at BREEDPLAN into the future. So for those of you that haven't been on before, my name is Catriona and I'm the Extension and Engagement Team Leader here at ABRI, based in Armidale in Australia. And joining me today is Gudex, and so our roles are to provide BREEDPLAN extension and education to beef producers such as yourselves. So as I said, this is our sixth and final webinar. You should all have, or those of you that were signed up should have received recordings of the first four, and we do have a recording of the previous fortnight's webinar, which we'll make available soon. And then we'll also be recording this webinar as well, and we'll make that available for you. Fortnight and told us that you would like a webinar on genetic conditions and managing those. We are happy to do that. We will set a date and then send out some notifications, but looking at doing that in the next little while, not necessarily in the next fortnight. So we'll schedule that for a bit later this year. Just before we get started, please make sure that your microphone is on mute. We are recording the webinar, so you'll be able to get a link to watch it back again, and questions are welcome. So please either use the chat option to type your question in, or if you prefer to ask your question out loud, use the reactions tab, raise your hand, and we will invite you to unmute your microphone and ask your question aloud. Okay, so today what we're going to go through is a brief history of BREEDPLAN, the challenges for beef producers moving forward, and then some of BREEDPLAN future developments. So we're going to look at new traits, combined evaluations, genomic products, and then some other additional developments. So if we go through the history of BREEDPLAN, the first analysis was in 1985, and at the time, those were within herd analyses, which meant that we were only able to compare the EBVs of animals within a single herd, and they were the growth traits, so 2, 4, and 600-day weights. But within 12 months, what was known as group BREEDPLAN became available, and that allowed us to compare animals across herds and to publish EBVs that were comparable across different herds, which is the basis of what we do today. So that was available within the first 12 months. In the 90s, that was when we developed International BREEDPLAN. We also started doing our multi-country analyses, so trans-Tasman evaluations, which we'll touch on briefly later. We increased the range of traits, so that included traits like fertility, carcass, and calving ease. And also, this was when we did marker-assisted EBVs for the first time. So this isn't single step. This was some of those old Gene Star type tests where they test for a couple of DNA markers, and those were incorporated into some of the EBVs we did for some traits for some analyses. And also when we started to look at new traits such as structure and temperament. In the 2010s, we rolled out our first single-step BREEDPLAN evaluation, the first of those being in 2017, and also some additional fertility traits. And as we've hit 2020 and beyond, continued rollout of single-step BREEDPLAN, including for a number of our international clients. So one of the things that you'll be able to see from that is that BREEDPLAN has been constantly evolving since its inception, evolving to incorporate the latest developments, the latest traits, the latest software developments, and meet the needs of the beef industry as they grow and change. So that takes us to where we are today. And currently we're conducting approximately 50 BREEDPLAN evaluations per month. Now, I say approximately because most of the BREEDPLAN evaluations are run on a monthly basis. but we do have some that run fortnightly, so they're a little bit more frequent. And we also have some that run quarterly, so every 3 months or so. So around 40 evaluations are happening each month. And in those evaluations, we evaluate over 15 million animals. And you can see that broken down by country or region on the screen there. So in the UK, we're analysing nearly 2 million animals, and a smaller number in Europe, but that's certainly been growing in recent years. We included in that is over 1 million genotypes. So we were really pleased to hit 1 million genotypes in late November last year, going through the BREEDPLAN analyses each month. And you'll see from when we introduced that's grown from when we introduced single step. So back in 2017 was when the first analysis occurred of single step. And you can see that's grown over time. And that's a factor of two things. Firstly, since we rolled out the first evaluation, we're now up to 17 evaluations. So that has increased the number of different analyses with animals with genotypes. But we've also seen beef producers and breeders increase the numbers of animals that they're genotyping themselves on farm, and that has also contributed largely to that growth and the number of genotypes you see coming through the analyses there. These evaluations are done for 80+ breed organisations and non-breed affiliated groups, so not a breed society necessarily. For example, in Australia, we do some BREEDPLAN analysis for large pastoral companies that are standalone analyses for them. And organisations are located around the world. So you can see that there are breed societies and other organisations using BREEDPLAN all around the world in a range of different countries and regions. And those 50 BREEDPLAN evaluations represent approximately 6,000 herds that are using that are BREEDPLAN members and are using the software to calculate EBVs for their animals. It is worth noting that the map is showing you where the breed organisations and the non-breed groups are located. Those 6,000 herds are spread out a little bit more geographically wider, including herds that are throughout Asia, but we haven't plotted those 6,000 herds for you to be able to see where they are. So this year, we're really, really proud to be celebrating 40 years of BREEDPLAN. It's certainly come a long way since it started back in 1985 with just within herd analysis and several growth traits. And we're really excited to see where we will go in the future and what that's likely to look like, because I think one thing that should be obvious, just running through the history, is that BREEDPLAN will constantly develop, constantly incorporate new traits. We're not going to reach a point where it's fixed. There's new things on the horizon, and we're really pleased to talk about a few of them for you today. So just before we do that, I think one of the things to think about is some of the challenges that are facing beef producers now and in the future. And I put these two photos up of Brad Crook, who you see here. He's our Manager of Genetics Research and Development on the screen. He did a trip to the UK, I think it was July or August, where he came over and visited a number of BREEDPLAN clients and breeders. And the reason I put it up is because I think these challenges apply to all beef producers, regardless of the geographical location, the breed of cattle, and the system, the production system that you're in. There's certainly challenges that are universal. There'll be unique challenges, but there's also some that producers, not just in the UK and Europe, are facing, but all around the world. So I think when we look at cattle breeding, both now and into the future, the aim is to be as productive and profitable as possible. And as I am sure we have discussed throughout this webinar series, profit is really a function of a range of different traits. So if you think about profit, it's about getting calves on the ground, so our fertility and our calving traits. It's about growth or weight, so our growth trait, the quality of the beef produced. So that's our carcass traits, less the cost of production. And as Boyd talked about several webinars ago, that's the cost of production, not just for the sale or the slaughter progeny, but also for the female breeding herd, which can take up to 70% of the on-farm cost for feeding is going into that female herd. So they're not an insignificant part of that equation. And all of those things are influenced not just by your management on farm, but also by genetics. And we have a range of BREEDPLAN EBVs that capture those different parts of the profit equation. But we're doing this in a changing world. So the population is increasing, which means that there's finite land to increase additional resources. There is competition for market share. I was reading the amount of beef produced has certainly increased significantly over the last 50 years or so. But if we look at the relative proportion of the market, we'll see that things like chicken have increased in their proportion of the market share. And there's also a trend, particularly in more developed countries with higher incomes, to look towards quality over quantity. So there's changes in the market share and competition in that space. And we've also got consumers that are increasingly aware and concerned about a range of issues that could impact the beef industry's social license. So whether those are real issues or perceived issues by the customers, those issues will impact on their desire to purchase beef. And so therefore, what can we do to address those concerns? So I think the challenge going forward is really to produce profitable beef as efficiently as possible in a system that has good environmental and high animal welfare role to play in assisting beef producers to meet those challenges going forward. It's certainly not the only thing that should be being considered, but it is one of the things that can help, and we can breed animals to be more efficient, to have better welfare. If we can do all of that, that's something that I think is going to be really important as we go forward in the next 10, 20 years or so. So that leads really nicely, I think, into a snapshot of some of the current beef genetics research and the traits of the future that the work's being done on. And I guess the work is being done with that previous, those couple of previous slides and that situation in mind. So we have female fertility is a big area of research, efficiency, and also health and adaptation. So fertility, there's several large-scale research projects in Australia that have been running for a number of years to collect large-scale female reproduction data. And so there's a large project running in the northern half of Australia that is investigating fertility in Bos Indicus cattle. It's been running for a number of years, excuse me. And also more recently, in the last 5 years, we've got the Southern Multi-Breed Project, which is running, looking at those temperate breeds, so British and Euro breeds, and doing the same sort of research, collecting that female reproduction data. So to do that, what they're doing is they're intensively recording daughters, and that involves regular ovarian ultrasound scanning. So they're looking for the presence of a corpus luteum to identify age of puberty, so where that female is pubertal, and also has had her first calf, looking at the rebreed. And so to do that, they're undergoing natural matings only. It's a 12-week natural mating, and it's for their first two pregnancies only natural mating, but after that they will do some fixed timer AI, followed by a backup bull for those mating 3 and beyond. So lots of intensive ovarian scanning is happening in those maiden heifers and those first cow rebreeds. And so what you can see here is some of the results for age at puberty. So that's the presence of a corpus luteum. And what you'll see here is the first sire in the project. If we've set here all of the other bull's daughters were displaying the presence of a corpus luteum. And so you can see that it goes up to 184 days. There's a huge difference there from 0, the first one, through to 140 days, 184 days later. And so that's approximately 6 months. In these animals, we're seeing nearly a 6-month difference in the age at which their daughters are reaching puberty. Additionally, if we go and have a look at the time to recycle, so this is those heifers that have had their first calf and then they've been rebred, how long did it take them to recycle after that? You can see once again from the time that the first sire's daughters started recycling through to when the last sire's daughters started recycling, it's 159 days, which is approximately 5 months. And so we're seeing a lot of variation in these traits. Now that's really important because I just told you that they were having a 12-week mating period. And so what they did see is, depending on when they put the bull out, there were daughters that weren't pubertal or daughters that weren't recycling yet. And that has implications, obviously, when you've got a short 12-week mating period for whether or not those animals will get pregnant to start with age of puberty, or whether or not they will get pregnant after their first calf with rebreed. So this is a trait that we think is going to be quite important going forward, allowing us to distinguish between age of puberty and also rebreed. They are correlated traits, but they're not the same trait. So there's a lot of research going in to better understand these two very, very important traits on farm in terms of female fertility. The next few traits that we are seeing a lot of research being done on are efficiency or related to efficiency. So the first of these is body composition. Sorry. And we're utilising cow body condition information in BREEDPLAN has been a long-term ongoing research topic because what we're really interested in is allowing breeders to distinguish between frame size and body type cows of similar weights. So at the moment with mature cow weight, while it's helpful for giving us an indication of the weight of that mature animal and distinguishing between lighter and heavier mature cow weight animals, what it doesn't tell us is she heavier because she's tall and lanky, or is she a shorter, squatter female? So body condition score is something that has been a key research factor for that reason. Previous work in some of the Australian beef CRC projects, these were large-scale research projects that were funded by government and industry, and there was 3 iterations of those a number of years ago. That work indicated that body condition score was moderately heritable in both Angus and Hereford. And more recently, with those large-scale research projects that I just mentioned that are currently ongoing, more recent work has shown that trait is also heritable in Brahmins. So I think that's really important. It's showing us that it is heritable across a range of different breeds, and that is important. If it's not heritable, it's not something we can use for selection purposes, but because it's heritable, it is something that we should be able to develop EBVs for going forward. The next trait of the efficiency series is feed efficiency. So Boyd talked several webinars ago about the current net feed intake EBVs we have in BREEDPLAN. Those are both feedlot based, just because of the sorry everyone, I am getting over a cold. just because of the challenges of being able to measure the feed that the animal is consuming. So they have been I think really if we can manage to record feed intake on pasture, that would be the holy grail of feed efficiency research. And there's some work going on in that space. You'll see in this picture the e-grazer, that's a wearable technology. It was developed by CSIRO and our state, New South Wales State Department of Primary Industries. And it is being used in some of the research projects now, utilising collars to see how well it's doing in field trials, and investigations into commercialisation is ongoing. So I think we're going to see lots of different organisations developing these sorts of wearable technologies with the aim of being able to capture individual feed efficiency on pasture, which while the NFI EBVs that are currently available are valuable for slaughter progeny, as I mentioned earlier, feed intake and feed cost in the female herd is a huge component of cost on farm, and so being able to record it on pasture for those mature cows would be ideal. We do expect that if an animal's feed efficiency in the feedlot, it should also be feed efficient on pasture, but those correlations are unlikely to be absolute. So it would be nice to be able to get a measure of that in pasture as well. And then the last project is, the last trait in this efficiency series is methane. So here in Australia, we have a large-scale $14.5 million beef project with funding from a range of industry organisations. And that is currently underway, and they are aiming to measure 8,000 cattle in feedlot and grazing conditions over the next 5 years. And so to do that, what you see on the screen here is a green feed unit, and it's essentially a unit the animal comes along to. It gets a little grain treat to stick its head in there, and when its head is in the feeder, they are recording its what it's breathing in and out. And so that allows them to get a capture of methane. One of the nice things about this is that they can do it on pasture as well as in the feedlot. It has required some training of animals, and there's been some interesting learning outcomes as a result, depending on the breed of cattle and whether or not they tend to move as a mob and walk off when the first ones go. They've had some trouble with some of the different breeds trying to get good measures of them on pasture, but certainly a very interesting area of research that is ongoing. I should also note that those 8,000 cattle, those that are in the feedlot, they're also, the proportion that are in the feedlot, they're also collecting net feed intake. Methane and net feed intake are correlated traits. Generally, if you are feed efficient, or more feed efficient, you're emitting less methane. So there is a relationship there between those different traits. And in New Zealand, Ag Research has been working on portable accumulation chambers for beef cattle as a way to measure methane on farm. They've had a lot of success doing portable accumulation chambers for sheep. So I should say that the methane accumulation chambers are the gold standard for recording methane. They are fixed and they are expensive, and also because there's only a small number of them, getting large numbers of animals through is a challenge, which is why we see other tests being developed and tested to see how well they capture methane. In New Zealand, the Ag Research team has successfully put a range of methane chambers onto the back of a truck for sheep, which allows them to drive out to a property and run the sheep through the truck into those little chambers. You'll see a picture of that truck there. But it's a little bit more challenging with beef because cattle are much larger and the chambers have to be bigger. So they have had some success, but certainly ongoing research developing there as well. Okay, our last traits are health and adaptation isolated. So in terms of adaptation, we see coat scores being collected into the environment that they're running in. And what we're looking for is sleek coat versus woolly coat. And you can see some of the coats there. This is a score 2 with the sleeker type coat, and a score 5 with a much more woolly coat. And so looking at adaptation in the Australian case, that is adaptation to a warmer environment, but I don't see any reason that it couldn't be also used to look at adaptation to a cooler environment, such as those that you have in the UK and Europe. We're also seeing buffalo fly and tick resistance scores collected, and this is to do again with health and adaptation to the environment, and also looking at ongoing animal welfare concerns due to disease challenge. Now, I've put buffalo fly and tick resistance scores up as the example of 2 of the traits that we see here in Australia. But again, I think that this has potential to be developed for other pests and other in other countries. It doesn't have to be a buffalo fly. You may have a similar type of fly, so long as we see variation in the cattle's response to the organism, and we see that response is heritable, then I think there's and we can also quantify the differences between animals with some recording score system, then I think that this sort of thing can be applied to other flies or ticks or other organisms that are seen as a challenge in other countries. And then lastly, immune competence is something that we're seeing a lot of research being done. So this is a CSIRO-led project. What they have done here is rank animals on their ability to mount a robust immune response across the immune system. So it's not targeted at a specific disease. Instead, it's looking at when they vaccinate the animals, what is the response to vaccination that they see. So it's not a disease challenge. That's important because from an ethics point of view, getting approval to do disease challenges as part of research is challenging. The ethics committees do not like exposing animals to disease and seeing what the immune response is. So that's why they've come up with this routine vaccination as an alternative. And that work is continuing. Those research projects that I mentioned back at the start of this section, they are looking at immune competence as a trait that's in wider ranges of animals, but also to start to collect critical data so that we can look at EBVs for those traits going forward. Sorry, everyone. Do we have any questions at this point, Boyd?
No, we don't have any questions at this moment. Do we want to swap who's sharing the screen now, or?
Yes. So I'll stop sharing. We're going to switch presenters, and Boyd is going to do the second half.
Right, is that now showing correctly?
Yes.
Or is it still loading? It's saying it's sharing on my end.
Yeah, all good.
Oh, good. Well, unless there's any questions have come in while I'm doing this, we shall continue. Please note, Catriona, I can't actually see the question area now if anything does come in. So we're going to talk about some breed plan developments to the actual analysis now. And first one we want to cover is combined evaluations. So there's 2 scenarios that breed plan can do different scenario combined evaluations. And I definitely emphasize can there because it's not something that is compulsory. So the first one is a multi-source single breed evaluation. Yo.
Sorry, we're still on the any questions page slide.
Is it?
Yeah.
What? It's saying at this end we've gone.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Huh, that is weird. Yep. So yeah, the first option is for within a breed having multiple sources of data coming in from multiple breed societies, say in different countries. And we certainly have, there's at least one example where we've got the United Kingdom included with Australia and New Zealand in a single evaluation. Then we've got the potential for a multi-breed evaluation as well, where we have multiple breeds of cattle included into a single evaluation and again, this is also from different breed societies and different sources as well. So our current system is based on a national genetic evaluation system as a general rule. We've got, most countries seeking their own performance in their own country, and they're trying to, have something for themselves, but then they also end up using a lot of imported genetics as well for genetic improvement, marketing reasons, whatever, that they're importing semen or embryos and using within their own breed as well from overseas. And this creates a problem that they can comparing animals that have been evaluated in another national genetic evaluation. So they're getting genetics from across the border, and they're going, well, how will this genetics perform in our environment? And hoping that it will perform, if it was a top genetics in another country, hopefully it'll be top in ours. But there's no guarantee of that. And so they're sitting there going, how do we benchmark their own genetics around the world? And that's when they're starting to look at it more multi-source evaluation. So in genetic evaluations, we're now looking at increased complexity. We're looking at more traits, more sources of data. We're increasing the frequency of evaluations. As Catriona mentioned earlier, we have some clients who are now gone to a fortnightly run as opposed to the monthly run, which is standard. And an increasingly global context that people want to be able to compare their country's genetics with genetics all around the world. So, BREEDPLAN has actually been doing across-country evaluations for over 20 years and large-scale multi-country evaluations for over 10 years. So it's something we've certainly got the ability to do and can do so going forward. So we've got a lot of trans-Tasman evaluations. So that's Australia and New Zealand in combined analyses. And in each case, it's the different breed societies in each country, but that we're able to combine their data into a single evaluation. We also have a lot bigger than just trans-Tasman. We have, we have Southern African analyses. We have Southern Hemisphere analyses that include Africa with the trans-Tasman, and we also have some worldwide one in which Murray Grey has Australia, New Zealand, UK, USA, and Canada all included in that. And when and ironically, it seems like 5 countries is a lot. When I look at the UK data, I see a lot of cattle from Denmark as well in there as well. So yeah, it's certainly a worldwide analysis for Murray Grey. So when we're doing a multi-source genetic evaluation like that, there's some considerations. So the first one can be grouped under technical. We need to have good genetic linkage, and we covered genetic linkage way back in one of the very first webinars we did for you guys a couple of months ago. So we've got to have animals that have progeny in both countries to provide that benchmark so we can effectively rank the countries and get comparable results. We need the same traits being recorded in both countries as well. Now, imperial measurements versus metric conversions, we can take care of that. Obviously, that's a known conversion factor there. And then the final one is matching. That's where we've got to be able to recognize when the same animal has progeny in both countries. Now, on different databases. They can be given different ident numbers. Their names can be written in different or misspelt. We've got to be able to recognize that and be able to use it. So they're all technical considerations for a multi-source genetic evaluation. The biggest stumbling block to multi-source genetic evaluations tends to be political. We as BREEDPLAN can't force it upon anyone to do a multi-source genetic evaluation. It's got to be agreed to by all parties involved. And, we have some situations where, people will have, some people will agree to it, but not others. So you've got to, you won't have a worldwide one, you only have a small group. As a result, small group of countries involved. And there's always concerns that, oh, well, if my cattle don't stack up against them, it must be due to the evaluation rather than the genetics we use. So when that happens, it creates disquiet, whether that difference, even if that difference is actually quite real. So it's an important consideration and certainly something that people are wary of. And then there's the practical considerations, and that's, computational. The computer time that's required to run these analyses does jump up quite a bit, and there's a lot of logistics and making sure that everyone's on the same time frame. There's a bit of costs involved, because obviously we need to start doing some extra things here to make sure that there's that linkage, there's the matching, and then there's the education of the users as well. So there's a large number of considerations that we have to consider in these multi-source genetic evaluations. But there is opportunities for breeds other than those I listed earlier to implement large-scale multi-country genetic evaluations. Going on to multi-breed evaluations, so we have a couple of large-scale research projects, actually the two that Catriona mentioned earlier, that are collecting the necessary data to do this kind of thing. And that's primarily driven by the commercial sector, who want to be able to go, if I'm looking, if they've got a crossbred herd, they want to be able to look at any breed and go, right, is this one the best or is that one, and not actually care about the breed. So that's where the main driver for these multi-breed genetic evaluations have come from. And like the multi-source evaluations, they have similar considerations. We need to be able to actually accurately compare these animals. There's no use having a group of Angus and a group of Hereford and there's no head-to-head comparisons, so we actually don't know how good the Angus are compared to the Hereford if you don't have those head-to-head comparisons. So if we have those comparisons where we've got Angus and Hereford and whatever other breed compared on the same properties, we can see the relative performance and we can start ranking them against one another. And again, we need stakeholder agreement for to be able to do a multi-breed evaluation. So each breed that's involved, they own their data and they've got to agree to allow it to go into a multi-breed evaluation. Another development that we've seen a lot of developments in, of course, is genomic products. There's the single-step BREEDPLAN genetic evaluations that we talked about in the last webinar. And then we've got commercial benchmarking products like BREEDPLAN Select that are, well, BREEDPLAN Select is coming on the market very soon, and there are others out there in the marketplace as well. So single-step BREEDPLAN, as discussed a couple of weeks ago, currently 17 analyses that started in 2017, and there's 5 in UK and Europe that we currently do, and there is more in development. I believe there are some quite close to development and should be coming soon. So moving on to BREEDPLAN Select, it's a DNA-driven genetic evaluation for commercial cattle. So it doesn't actually require trait or pedigree data, but because it doesn't use that information, it isn't actually as accurate as what we do in single-step BREEDPLAN. And in fact, it relies on single-step BREEDPLAN to drive it. So it's not this product is not suitable for seed stock because of those limitations. So as I said, it's releasing very soon in Australia and is anticipated to be rolled out internationally in the coming years. So it has a number of benefits for commercial herds. You know, it allows them to make better selection decisions. You know, if they're bringing in a mob of heifers and deciding which ones they're going to retain, you know, they may be able to take DNA sample from some of those heifers and go, right, oh, I'm going to keep that one, but not that one on this basis. It also allows a commercial herd to benchmark their herd and get an idea of where their herd sits and, you know, where it's good, where it's not, and where they may be able to buy bulls that will make target specific traits that they may be weak in or that they want to make more genetic progress in. Because if they're already very good in a trait, they won't be able to make much genetic progress because there won't be many bulls out there that will be better than what they've already got. Continuing on to selection indexes, this is something that I work a lot on, and we're continuing to work with breed societies to update these selection indexes. So updates will include revised production system descriptions if desired by the breed societies or breeder group. We can include sustainability breeding objectives if desired, you know, so fitting in with what Catriona talked about, one of the challenges going forward for beef production. And we can also account for regional differences in these indexes, and that's certainly something we've worked very hard on in the development of the software we use to do selection indexes, is the ability to account for regional differences. So, you know, the cost of feed varies greatly between locations, and that's certainly a big driver in these indexes. We can also account for the genetic progress in the breed. So if a breed has created some selection indexes 10 years ago, in the last 10 years, there will have been a lot of genetic change in the breed, and, you know, mature cow weights will have changed, growth will have changed. We need to account for that in the new indexes because, again, it may be changing where you want to make progress if you've already achieved some desired gains in certain traits. We update economic costings. We all know that economics, you know, there's things called inflation and that kind of thing that change the costings. And, you know, as much as we may be getting paid more for cattle now, we also know our costs to produce those cattle have also increased as well. So we need to update that in the modeling for creating the indexes. And we're also including the latest technical updates. So this could be to your genetic parameters, so the heritabilities and the genetic correlations and the amount of variation in each trait. If they've been updated, we incorporate them into the new indexes, and they make quite a difference. And there's also been some updates to the breed object software that we use to create the selection indexes, including the accounting for regional differences I mentioned before. And another thing that we have available from BREEDPLAN is what is a piece of software called MateCell. So it's a mating list creation service. These mating lists balance the conflicting demands of genetic progress, inbreeding, and genetic diversity. Now, if you were targeting maximum genetic progress, you would select the best bull possible and mate them to all of your cows. Now, some of those cows possibly going to be sisters to that bull, so the inbreeding would go through the roof and your genetic diversity would narrow. So what this does is it applies some software to it and tries to balance all these out so you can balance your inbreeding and genetic diversity while still maximizing your genetic progress. So it's quite a wonderful piece of software. I'm a big fan of it myself. Again, it's something that I'm responsible for at ABRI. And I do a number of runs for some United Kingdom clients. Ironically, not a BREEDPLAN client, but they are using ABRI databases and therefore able to access MateCell. And we currently do that at the cost of £75 per run. We don't currently have any European clients, so if you're interested, please contact us and we can discuss that. And for more detail on MateCell, there's the website there, or you can use that email address and you'll invariably end up on my computer to discuss it with you. One word of warning, it isn't something that, it's not an instantaneous process. It does take me a bit of time to run, though with you guys being around the other side of the world, I can generally turn it around most times overnight for you. That is if I'm in the office and not sick or out doing other things out of other jobs out of the office. But the real great news on MateCell is that we're actually going to an interactive version that is in development. So it's not available yet, but it will be in the future. And that will actually allow you to put your candidate sire and candidate dam list into it and have a play around, and you'll be able to do things like place trait limits on things. So if you want to say, right, I want to make sure that my birth weight's below +3, I want to make sure my 200-day weight's above +20, and other things like that, you'll be able to do that we cannot currently do in the MateCell service that we offer. But so that's going to be an exciting thing going forward. And we know from experience and other breeders who have used it, and where we can look at the log and see what they're doing. We have seen breeders who haven't gone to sleep. They've started playing around with this at 8 o'clock at night and got to 7 o'clock next morning and gone, oh crap, I missed last night. This is just so interesting, where I was trying different things and creating different lists to see where I'd go. So we know it can be quite addictive. And as I said, I'm a big fan of it as well. And when we talk to clients, the big three things that they really love about it is the time it saves creating mating lists for large herds, the ability to go, I'm considering buying this bull. If I use MateCell, I can see what the effect of including him in my bull team is for the coming year and evaluate whether I really want to purchase that bull or some of his semen before I actually do so. And the third thing really is the ability to balance genetic progress against diversity when limited unrelated sire options exist. So if you're in a small breed where there's not many options in other herds that you can do, or you're in a closed herd where you're not really buying sires from anywhere else, maybe because they don't have the traits that you're after, it's very easy to run yourself into a bottleneck where you've used a line of cattle so much that all of the animals are related to each other, and inbreeding starting to become a problem. You haven't got much genetic diversity. MateCell can help you prevent that from happening if you're using it. And some quotes we've had from users is calling it Tinder for cows, and the other one is the capability of the tool is well beyond what mere mortals can do. So I think, yeah, our existing clients absolutely love the service. So that's why we've mentioned it here. And the final thing I'm going to discuss today is actually breed logic. So you may have heard that ABRI is currently going through a multi-million-dollar investment into our database services. So the databases will be used obviously by breed society staff, but it's going to have enhanced breeder user interfaces for you guys. So it's going to allow the breed societies to have a more fully configurable platform, so they'll be able to do reports that more fully configurable reports that they'll be able to send out to you. It'll mean for you as breeders, it'll be easier for you to put data in, and we hope to include some better decision making tools. So that will probably include MateCell as well. and it will be web-based to allow access in any location at any time of the day. So if you happen to be out in the paddock and you've got cell phone data service and you're able to go, hey, I want to check something on the database, you'll be able to do it from there as well. So it is hoped to be quite a significant jump in capability for our clients. So that would actually be the end of our presentation today. So does anyone have any questions?
There's no questions in the chat at this point that I can see, but if anyone has them, please feel free to type them in. While we're waiting for that, those questions, if anyone has them to come in, I will launch the feedback, and we'd really appreciate you answering a couple of questions for us. We've had one question come in. Do we have a date when the last webinar is available? I am hoping to get it up in the next few days. So hopefully early next week, I'll get it sent around to everyone. And then the second question is probably best for Boyd. Does MateCell work with genomics?
The software itself is capable, but certainly not set up there currently. And hopefully in the future we may get to that stage, but at this stage the answer is no. And I imagine it's going to take quite a bit of work to set up the capability. The data, when we do genomics, we create what is called a genomics relationship matrix for the whole breed for the analysis. And to use that GRM in MateCell, we've got to create it for the breed, for the herd in particular. So it's going through that whole process as well. In saying that, and I may have misinterpreted the question, the genomic EBVs that are produced from BREEDPLAN, yes, they're certainly used. So the EBVs enhanced by genomics will be used in MateCell, but actually using the relationship matrix that we use for genomics in MateCell, it's a possibility, but not yet. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, they're the only two questions we've had come in so far. So we might
One
leave
more.
things there.
Thanks. Yep.
We might leave things there, and if you do have any further questions that you think of afterwards, As always, you're welcome to get in touch with us via email and we will answer them for you. All right. Thank you, everyone.